You probably don't believe me, and I wouldn't either, but I get recognized pretty often walking around in public, especially in the summer when everyone's outside hanging around, whether that's through YouTube or through TikTok. And typically someone comes up and says, what's going on? And we have a little conversation, and they always dive into talking about fantasy football. And most people's only question is like, who are the guys that I need to be targeting this year? Who are the under the radar players that are like your guys? Who are the under the radar players that people don't really know about, that my league mates won't know about? And it's always that question over and over and over again. So you know what? I said to myself, why don't I just make that exact video? Why don't I just take the title of exactly what people are asking me and make that into a video? And that's what we are doing here today. We are running through 8 players that I think are relatively under the radar if you're just getting back into fantasy football that could be breakout fantasy superstars in the great year of 2025. At the end, make sure you stick around because I will be going through a couple honorable mentions as well. This list is mainly going to be kept to dudes who are being drafted in normal leagues. Like just a very high level overview for this year in fantasy football. Of course, you want to target young guys, but I think this is such a strong rookie class to go after. And we've seen over the last, half decade, there should be no reason to shy away from rookies. Like, yeah, maybe the first like 2 or 3 weeks is a little bit slow to start out, but we've seen so many good rookies come in and immediately impact your fantasy teams. And I think this year will be no different. When I'm just looking at players that were drafted, relatively early in this year's draft class, you have 25 players in day 1 and day 2. So rounds 1, 2, or 3, 25 non-quarterback. So non-quarterback skill players drafted in the first 3 rounds this year. So just running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, you have 25 of them coming into the league within the first 3 rounds. And the very first guy that I feel phenomenal about drafting is Emeka Egbuka for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wide receiver, their first round pick this year. And when it happened, a lot of people had an adverse reaction to it and were questioning why they would do that when they already had Godwin and Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan, who had like a mini breakout last year. I can't tell you how it's going to happen, but I feel really good about saying Egbuka is going to be a very big fantasy contributor this year, especially by the end of the year when it's going to matter for your fantasy team. The way I'm looking at Egbuka, and just hang with me for a minute. Egbuka is kind of like if you're playing poker, right? You're playing Texas Hold'em and you get dealt like a suited Jack 10. Right? That's a fun hand to get. You're like, cool. They have the same suit. They're like kind of high cards. It's not a great hand, right? Like an ace, a king, or a queen is going to beat you out, but you have a lot of outs in order to make something happen. Emeka Egbuka is like if you were dealt a Jack 10 suited, and then on the flop, you had 2 of the same suits come out. So let's say you had Jack 10 of hearts in your hand, and the flop comes out, right? And the flop is a queen of hearts, a 10 of diamonds, and a 9 of hearts, all right? So now you're sitting there, and you're like, cool, I got 17 different outs here, right? I got a pair of 10s. That's like the best card I have right now, but a pair of 10s is not really winning you anything. It could beat less strong hands here, but now you got a straight draw on both sides of the sandwiches. You got a flush draw, so you need 1 heart within the next 2 cards, and you got a pair of 10. So maybe you get 2 pair, maybe you get 3 of a kind. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of outs here to make a really, really strong hand off of the base cards that you have. That's the way I'm looking at Egbuka. I don't know how it's going to happen, but some good shit is likely going to happen if you take the chance here. When I look at the offense that you're attaching him to, right? Like Baker and this Tampa Bay offense are going to be top 12, especially just in the passing game by itself. Now, I know Tristan Wirfs is likely going to be out for the first 4 games of the season. I don't want to go into too deep of a conversation of like, I'm no longer drafting Emeka Egbuka because one of their 5 offensive linemen is going to be out for a quarter of the season. That feels like a little bit too deep to shy away. And like Egbuka might not even be a guy that's heavily contributing for the first couple games anyways because he is a rookie. But regardless, when I look at Baker, when you go dive into the numbers in Vegas right now, Joe Burrow is the single quarterback with a higher passing touchdown total than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is also top 5 in passing yards. He's in the NFC South, so he gets to play my Atlanta Falcons twice, Carolina twice, New Orleans twice. Like, come on now. Their last 5 games of the fantasy season: Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, at Miami. So not only is it a super soft schedule, but there are no real weather concerns. You have 3 home games in Tampa Bay, obviously, and then one of the last games of the fantasy season, which is when a lot of people have to play in cold weather, they're playing in Miami. You have Mike Evans, who is going to be 32 soon. Like, eventually he's going to lose that battle to Father Time. I'm not predicting it, but like eventually it's going to happen. Evans has now quietly dealt with a hamstring strain in 3 straight seasons. Didn't always miss time for it, but like those start to pile up and those start to matter. And it becomes harder and harder to come back from them in a quicker amount of time the older you get and the more of those you have. Chris Godwin, right? We talked a lot about him in yesterday's video where I jumped into lines that are out there available right now on books and talked about some of the worst values in all of Vegas. And Chris Godwin is kind of being thrown at us as one of those guys that we should be dampering our expectations for. His line right now is 725.5. When you look around where he's getting drafted, other receivers, way lower than the guys around him. So he's obviously coming off of a major lower leg injury. He had the ACL tear a few years ago. So he is, getting older. He's going to be 30 by the end of this year, and he is returning from another major injury. So when I look at Egbuka, I'm like, what if Chris Godwin is actually on the pup to start the year? What if he misses the first 1 or 2 games? Egbuka gets into rhythm, and then it's like really hard to take him off the field, at least as like a slot receiver, or at least as like a 65% type of receiver. Egbuka has really, really strong hands, some of the strongest hands in the class, 6'1", 202. He has the size to be an outside receiver, but he can also play the power slot like Godwin. They ran 11 personnel last year, 71% of the time, which ranked really highly. 11 personnel means 3 wide receivers on the field. 71% of the time, despite the injuries to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans throughout the year. Like that should have taken their personnel down to more 2 tight end sets or whatever the case may be. But they didn't care, and that is how their offense is likely going to run again. They do have a new offense coordinator. Obviously, Liam Cohen is now in Jacksonville, but I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing for Egbuka particularly, because Godwin, one of the big reasons why he kind of broke out last year, why everyone was excited, was because Liam Cohen decided that he was going to move him back into the slot as a full-time player there. Now with the new OC, do we see a little bit more fluctuation in Godwin playing outside, Godwin playing in the slot, giving Egbuka a chance to move more into the slot? And yeah, McMillan was nice last year, but let's not confuse a big breakout year with like a very inflated touchdown number, because we've done that before now. The Anthony Millers of the world, the Jahan Dotsons of the world, like rookies who come in, they don't really catch a lot of balls. They don't have a high receiving yardage total. They're not actually involved in their offense very much, but they have a spike in lucky touchdowns where the defensive breakdowns or whatever happened. And a lot of that is what happened to McMillan. Like also, you don't go out and draft the first round wide receiver if you feel really good about a guy like Jayden McMillan coming up and being a big part of this offense. So at the end of the day, like I said, I think there are a lot of ways in which something happens in the Tampa Bay offense where Egbuka becomes a very, very large part of it. I can't really predict what that is. Is it Godwin and his leg injury? Is it Mike Evans getting older and him succumbing to injuries, or the fall off finally happening? Is it this offense just playing so well, and because they play 11 personnel so often, Egbuka's on the field for 75 to 80% of the snaps? Like something's going to happen where Egbuka is too talented to fail here. So just think about Egbuka being the Jack 10 of hearts when you go into your draft, and you could take him in round 10, 11, or 12. Next player up on this list is another rookie, and that is Caleb Johnson out of Pittsburgh. You have probably seen a theme throughout my videos this summer. I am infatuated with this kid. Loved him coming out of Iowa. Loved his tape. I think he's a phenomenal all-around player. He's got the size to be there on all 3 downs. So I think he's going to start off in Pittsburgh as a 3-down back. 3rd-round pick, typically not going to be the case. Jaylen Warren is definitely going to be the 1B there to Caleb Johnson's starting role. But even the Vegas lines right now are looking good for Caleb Johnson, man. He has the highest total of non-Ashton Genty rookie running back rushing yards. He's north of 800, so 825.5 with 5.5 touchdowns set as his line. Now, obviously, he's expected to be a lot less involved in the receiving game for the Pittsburgh Steelers than these other guys, but Caleb Johnson, I think, is going to get a ton of carries. I think he'll likely be the goal line back there. I like what they've been doing with their offensive line. They've been building it up over the last couple of years. They hit on their center last year. They have some talented tackles that are much better in the run game than they are in the pass game. They were a top 10 team in terms of run blocking just last year per PFF. And say what you want, but Arthur Smith is a good runner of the football. Talk about his personnel choices not always being super sound, but he always gets production out of his running backs, and they are just always super run heavy. Any offense that he actually runs, when you look back at the last couple of years, last year, 2024, Pittsburgh, 5th highest run rate. 2023, Atlanta, 4th highest. 2022, Atlanta, 2nd highest. And when you actually look at the teams that are ranked above them, they're all ranked really highly because they have mobile quarterbacks. Like last year, Pittsburgh was 5th, but Philly, Baltimore, Buffalo were all ranked ahead of them because a quarterback running and scrambling counts towards a team's overall run rate. So when you look at the actual teams that ranked above Arthur Smith offenses in run rate, like there are very, very few over the last 3 years, and that's going to happen with Pittsburgh. And I think Aaron Rodgers, like, yeah, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the top 10, top 8 quarterback anymore, but I think he gives the offense a lot more stability than what they've had over the last few years here. So I think with an offense that's projected to win, 8, 9 games, like Caleb Johnson could be the beneficiary of an offense that scores a decent amount. And not to mention just like how much Mike Tomlin has been talking about Caleb Johnson and talking about how he's a high volume back and how they can use him in that Najee Harris role. I think it's like a very simple puzzle piece to fit here. And I think people are a little bit less excited about him because the number of running back, like it's such a strong running back class, and there were a few that went before him. Like he was the round 3 running back when you had Judkins and you had Travion and you had RJ Harvey go in the second round, of course, on top of Hampton and Genty both going into the first round. So Caleb, dropping down a little bit in the draft becomes the guy that gets a little bit more forgotten about. But like PPR, I think maybe we need to lower expectations a little bit. But if you're playing in a half PPR league, I love Caleb Johnson this year. Next player up on this list is not a rookie. He was a rookie in 2023. So he is entering his 3rd season here. And, just a quick reminder, if you enjoy these videos, the way that I see that on the back end is by seeing like the thumbs up that are being hit on the videos. It lets me know that you like these style of videos. So if you are enjoying the video so far and you want to see more of these or more types of videos similar to this, just drop down below, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And, should also be said that in a few weeks, early August, we are dropping our draft guide. It's everything that you need for your fantasy football draft. It's got our rankings of every position, every league type, regardless of what kind of league type you are in, as well as all the players that I'll be targeting, our must draft players, our fade lists, our tiebreaker matrix that we have, which is a new tool that we introduced last year. That is at discounted pre-order price right now on BDGE.co, but you can get that for way, way, way more discounted if you go and sign up on our partner website. They are giving you a heavily discounted price on it. Literally, if you deposit $10 on there with code BDGE, it'll be the very, very, very first link in the description down below. $10 code BDGE. Play a slip on the partner website. You are going to get our draft guide for free once you do that, okay? So if you're not in a state that's eligible, then you'll have to go get it as a discounted price through BDGE.co. But the cheapest way and the best way to support our brand is by depositing on our partner website. Best way to support your fantasy team this year is to draft the man's Cedric Tillman, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. He is the forgotten about man because we think about Cleveland and everyone gets excited about Jerry Jeudy. And he had some concussion issues that cost him a lot of time at the end of last season. But prior to getting injured, he was kind of the man in this offense. When you look at the 3 games that he took over once Deshaun Watson was out and this team started to throw the ball more, he led these receivers in targets, in receptions, in yards, 3 touchdowns over those 3 games. He played on 91% of those snaps. He averaged 10 targets per game, 6 receptions, and 75 receiving yards, finishing as the wide receiver 3, the wide receiver 12, and the wide receiver 14, okay? And I also think, like, when I'm looking at this Browns team with the new emerging news of Quinshad Judkins, if he misses time, like, this is going to be a team that's forced to be more pass-heavy. They averaged the single most pass attempts per game last year because they could not rely on the ground game. Like, you can't feed Jerome Ford 25 carries a game. I think that's why they went out and drafted Judkins and then Dylan Sampson, because they wanted to be able to rely more on the ground game and be a little bit more of a balanced offense. But if you don't have your early down guy in Judkins, the 220-pound back that you can give 15 to 18 carries per game, then you're going to have to go more pass heavy. And it's not like I expect this team to be any good. So a lot of the reason that they were passing the ball a lot last year, obviously, was because they weren't winning a lot of games, and you need to pass the ball, obviously, and you need to pass the ball to play catch up there. And I think we're going to see a lot of the same this year. So if Judkins misses time, I think that's even more of a boost for a guy like Cedric Tillman. The concussion concerns are obviously real, but at this price, it's not like you're paying, a 5th or 6th round price for a guy with concussion concerns. You're getting him at the end of your drafts because he's kind of forgotten about. Moving to number 4, we have not a real rookie, but kind of a rookie when it comes to playing time in the NFL. And it is our first quarterback on the list. That's J.J. McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings. He is without a doubt my favorite QB2, 3 to draft in Superflex leagues this year. And I've drilled this home already. When I think about the situations, like, one, Kevin O'Connell just makes kings out of everybody who steps foot under center in the Minnesota Vikings offense when it comes to quarterbacks and when it comes to statistics. He took Sam Darnold, who was on his 4th team in 4 years, and turned him into a damn all-pro quarterback almost, right? 4,300 passing yards, 35 passing touchdowns, was unbelievable. Earned him a $100 million contract because he sat into that system and just dominated. And it's probably not that hard to do considering the pieces that they have around him. They already had a very good offensive line with Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw coming back, one of the best tackle duos in the NFL. They go out and sign Will Fries from the Colts for like $90 million. They also bring along his blocking mate, Ryan Kelly. They draft Donovan Jackson, first round offensive lineman this year. So the O-line is going to be dynamite. The weapons, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, 2 years removed from the ACL now. You got Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason. Like it's just a personnel that cannot be fucked with, man. And when you look at McCarthy and you go look at his Vegas lines, again, I will always come back to these because I think they set reality and they set expectations. His passing yardage line, there are like 6 or 7 quarterbacks that have a higher passing yardage line than J.J. McCarthy this year. And his passing touchdown line is as high as the Brock Purdy's, the Tua's, the Jordan Loves, the Dak Prescott's. Like, he is very much considered to be in that class of QBs when it comes to fantasy guys. Like, he is looked at as a QB 12 to 14 to 15 option when you can get him around quarterback 19, 20, 21 in most of your drafts. And let's not forget, they play in a dome, so they're going to have a lot better weather than some of their other NFC North mates. They have a tough schedule, but I think this is a division that has a lot of shootout potential in it. And J.J. McCarthy ain't a cone in the pocket, man. He is athletic. He can move around. He could rush, and I think we're going to see that on display as well in 2025. So McCarthy needs to be your like QB 2-3 targets if you are in a super flex league. I also love me some Cam Skattebo, running back for the New York Giants out of Arizona. Just absolute workhorse, 3-down skill set, 5'10", 220 pounds. Unbelievable pass catcher. Like, I don't want people to not understand how good he is in the passing game last year. 45 catches, 605 receiving yards just last year. That's better than most dudes coming out their entire collegiate career statistics. 13.4 yards per reception last year. Tyrone Tracy was really good as a rookie, and he was one of my favorite sleepers in last year's rookie class. He was someone that we had pointed out to target in most of your rookie drafts, but his fumbling issues are real, man, and it could get him put into the doghouse. Cam Skattebo forced so many missed tackles, and despite the immense workload that he shouldered last year and just throughout college, was very, very rarely injured. I'm just a big fan of Skattebo. Like, I really liked his tape. I thought he was a little bit underrated. Yeah, he might be a little bit slow. He might be like not as athletic as you need to be to see some incredible upside, but you have some dudes who are not breakaway guys, the James Connors, the Josh Jacobs, who, like, you give them an open field and they're going to make plays, and they are elusive and powerful and run through contact balance. And this is a tweet from my good friend Justin Pennick over at John Boy Media. He said, the Giants running back Cam Skattebo advanced stats among draft eligible players: 6th in yards after contact per attempt, 2nd in missed tackles forced, 98th percentile in missed tackles forced per attempt, 4th in runs of 10+ yards, 8th in yards per attempt, 2nd in yards per route run. He's just good on all 3 downs. And I think the biggest hurdle for him is obviously getting past Tyrone Tracy, who I do think is really, really talented. And I don't think I'm ready to just completely write him off because they drafted Skattebo in the 4th round this year. But I'm excited to see what that backfield turns into. And I think I'll be drafting both of them, to be honest with you. Like, Tracy's fallen enough. Skattebo's pretty late in drafts that, like, I'm cool leaving my draft with one of these guys, probably whoever's the cheaper. But I really, really do like the upside of Skattebo. The 6th player up on this list is Kyle Williams, the 3rd round pick, the early 3rd round pick for the New England Patriots this year. This is a fun upside shot that, like, you could end up dropping within a couple of weeks, I'll be honest with you. But if we're banking on a Drake May breakout, which I am, like, you're going to need pass catchers here to contribute and make that breakout happen. Like, obviously, Stephon Diggs was signed to be the one, and he should see some pretty real volume, but he is coming back from the ACL tear, and he is pretty old, so I think there's a ton of opportunity. And I don't want to go, like, overboard with Kyle Williams, because I do think, like, the dynasty and rookie community has gone, like, crazy on Kyle Williams and are just, like, assuming a breakout here, because we kind of just did the same song and dance with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. But I will say Kyle Williams was dynamite at Washington State in college. I mean, amongst the class coming out this year for wide receivers, he was a leader in many statistics, or at least, top 3, top 5, one of the best in the class. Receiving touchdowns, 14 of them. The man's can score. Yards per target, 11.5. Yards per reception, 17.1. He is a legit deep speed guy. 5'11", 190. So good size, 4.40 40-yard dash, so legit NFL speed, dangerous with the ball in his hands, 4.43 yards per route run, 4.43 yards per route run versus man coverage, graded out as a phenomenal separator per Matt Harmon's reception perception, great source for you to cite out there, 75th percentile success rate versus man, 82nd versus press, yards after contact per reception. Like, he is such a good player to run screens through, get the ball in his hands and let him make magic. 8.4 yards after the catch per reception. That is elite, and he led the class in broken plus missed tackles forced per reception. 14 catches of 20-plus yards. I don't know that I see him being a legit number one in the NFL, but he's a good enough receiver that, like, if Stephon Diggs is not ready to play early on, or if he re-injures something and gets hurt, or the fall off is real, like, I think he's good enough to be forced into the number one role for half a season and can produce for you in a major way. I don't think you want to build your offense around him, but like, there are glimpses where we've seen this throughout the NFL tons of times where a guy who's probably not ready to be a number one can be that guy in, time frames where he's needed to be. And I think that's Kyle Williams. He just adds a level of explosiveness to this New England offense that they just simply didn't have before. Moving on to number 7, another rookie, Jayden Higgins, Houston Texans wide receiver, early second round pick. Huge fan of Jayden Higgins, his style, his play, long, lean, smooth, 6'4", 215, runs a 4.47 40-yard dash. One of the more athletic players in this entire class, like the third best athletic score among all receivers. Like, again, super smooth the way he runs his in-breaking routes. Perfect complement to Nico Collins on the outside. I mean, you're literally talking about the Twin Towers out there, like, for real. Just a little peek inside the OTAs for the Texans. Just a lot of good when it comes to Jayden Higgins. And one of the good things about, playing against the Houston Texans secondary is, like, when they're one of the best secondaries in the league and you get to practice against Kamari Lassiter, you get to practice against Derek Stingley day in and day out. And I think he is poised to just be the number 2 in this offense immediately. Like, yes, they signed Christian Kirk and they drafted his teammate, very talented Jalen Noel. I think whoever wins that wide receiver 3 spot will just be a slot guy. And when they play 12 personnel, 2 wide receivers, it'll be Nico and Jayden Higgins. Just great college production, 3.15 yards per out run versus man coverage, 2.2% drop rate, phenomenal hands, love the landing spot, love the fit, love the player, Jayden Higgins. And I'm actually just going to dive into the honorable mentions because the last guy I had on this list is Ray Davis, but I don't have like a real strong logical argument to say like he's going to be a breakout player this year other than he's just one of my favorite handcuffs, obviously, behind James Cook. James Cook is unhappy with the contract situation. James Cook maybe on the smaller side, a lot of touches. I don't know. You could, whatever. I don't want to put a bunch of handcuffs on here and be like, yeah, draft 7 handcuffs and one of them will hit. Like, you don't have a roster if you just do that. But yeah, everyone's talking about Trey Benson and whatever. Like, Ray Davis was the only one who really stepped in, and the dude went for 150 yards from scrimmage in the game that James Cook missed. Like, he was legit last year. So I do think that if James Cook misses time, or if James Cook holds out, which he's already reporting to OTAs and camp and stuff like that, doesn't look like he's gonna, Ray Davis would be a no-brainer, obviously, like, massive fantasy upside winner there. So I like Ray Davis as an honorable mention. He's a guy that if I'm gonna draft handcuffs that are not mine, Davis would be a target of one of those for me. When we dive a little bit deeper into the honorable mentions, Dylan Sampson tops the list for sure. Now with the Judkins news, Dylan Sampson was one of my favorite running backs in the class. I thought he could have been drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round. Goes in the 4th round. Kind of weird that they take Judkins and then they take Sampson, but it should tell you how high they probably had Sampson for the fact that, they felt like he was such a value that they needed to double down on the running back position. Extremely explosive, a dude who had nearly 1,500 rushing yards last year, but really, really fast, like legit breakaway speed, explosiveness on the ground. Unbelievable runner between the tackles too, so do not let that go unlooked at. So if Judkins misses time and you're in a more of a casual league and Sampson's sitting there later on in drafts, must draft for me. Really like Trey Harris out there in LA. I think he complements as a bigger receiver, a more possession type receiver that can make plays with the ball in his hands. I think he complements Ladd McConkey really well. He is still holding out right now. All of these 2nd round wide receivers outside of Jayden Higgins pretty much have not signed their contract because now they're waiting for a fully guaranteed contract because Jayden Higgins got a fully guaranteed contract as a 2nd round player, which doesn't normally happen. But now everybody's like, I want a fully guaranteed contract. So Trey Harris slightly moving down my list because the more time you miss in summer as a rookie, the more problematic your rookie year is likely going to be. But if he gets his ass into camp very, very soon, I will be very high on Trey Harris. Also love two smaller backup, more explosive running backs. These are much deeper guys for you if you're in a sharper league here. That is Brashard Smith, the 7th round pick in Kansas City. I think he's such a good complement to what they have there. Really good pass catcher. We've also seen KC turn 7th round running backs into good players. So Brashard Smith is a guy to keep an eye on. And then Jayden Blue, the 5th round rookie in Dallas here. Incredible pass catcher, incredibly explosive out of Texas last year, led all running backs in receiving touchdowns. That backfield is a mess. Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, you've had multiple teams say that both of these guys are cooked already. So Jayden Blue, I don't think will ever be like a strong early down back, but he could be a guy where if I don't expect Dallas to be very good, Vegas has them at a 7.5 win total. I think the only good part of this team will be their passing offense, and I think that's where Jayden Blue will shine. So just to recap for you very quickly, if you run up to me on the streets, these are the players that I'm going to hit you with, all right? We have emeka, egbuka, 1st round pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have Caleb Johnson, the 3rd round pick for the Steelers. We have Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver 2 for Cleveland. We have J.J. McCarthy, who will be the starting quarterback from Minnesota. Cam Skattebo, who will likely start off as Tyrone Tracy's backup, but I think he will get work immediately. We have Kyle Williams, the 3rd round rookie wide receiver for the New England Patriots. We have Jayden Higgins, the 2nd round rookie wide receiver for the Houston Texans, playing opposite Nico Collins. And then the honorable mentions will be Mr. Ray Davis, Dylan Sampson of the Browns, Trey Harris of the Chargers, Brashard Smith of the Chiefs, and Jayden Blue of the Cowboys. Bang! There you have it. If you enjoyed the video, the best way to let me know that, plus support the channel, is to hit the thumbs up button down there, all right? And if you want our draft guide for the very cheapest price, you will go through the very first link in the description. That will take you to our partner's website. Deposit $10 with code BDGE, play on the website, and it'll automatically be sent to you in the inbox on their app, all right? I love y'all. I'm out of here. Smoochies.